After over 25 years of marriage, we've learned that successful couples have great friendships, put each other first, and focus on light just as much as love. We believe marriage should be fun and easy.
Our goal is to share our journey with the hopes of helping others build strong, happy relationships. Join us as we continue to create our lives beyond I do. Before we get into our episode, we want to share this disclaimer. We are not marriage counselors, nor are we mental health professionals. We simply want to share with you what has worked in our marriage. Now, on to our episode.
All right, we'd like to welcome you back to the Beyond I Do podcast. We come to you today with a very, very special guest who is a nurse practitioner. She is a business and consultant coach. She is the founder of the Nurse Shark Academy, where she coaches nurses to launch and scale their businesses, and also the host of the Nurse Shark Academy podcast show. We bring to you today Miss Tina Baxter.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are so honored to have you with us. And we gave a little rundown of your titles and credentials, but if you would tell us a little bit about yourself, what it is that you do and how you got to that point.
Okay. Well, I am an advanced practice registered nurse, a nurse practitioner. My specialty is gerontology or older adults with a subspecialty in geropsychiatry. Okay. And I started out as a nurse in the psychiatry department. So I'm one of those old mental health nurses from back in the day.
Wow.
And I worked, before I became a nurse, I worked in a nursing home as a CNA. So I've been there on the floor, in the field, you name it. I was a home health aide. I've had numerous jobs over my years. I started out working in the lab in high school and college, in the lab department, and realized that was not for me. It was too repetitive.
Right.
So I kind of crave a little bit of adrenaline there. I need variety. I'm the variety person. So that's where geriatrics suits me very well, because the day is never the same. The day is never the same.
When you talk about the populations that you've worked with, I would imagine you've been called a little bit of everything.
I have. Some things I had to look up because I didn't know what they were. I didn't know whether to be offended or not.
Right, right. So if you would explain to us, you said you're an advanced practice registered nurse. You would explain to us. So when we go into the hospital, we know that we have different caretakers, we have different nurses. But if you would explain what it is, what a nurse practitioner is, what that means, and how you get to that level.
Well, most of the time when you think of a nurse practitioner, people always describe us as being just under a doctor. And I kind of like to say, well, yes and no. Because we marry that nursing background that we have, that you think of with the typical nurse, and then we add in some of the role that the physician would have. But we certainly know our place, right? I'm not a surgeon. I don't go cutting on people, right? But I can help you manage your chronic diseases, which is something that nurses and nurse practitioners are very good at. I can diagnose an acute illness and write your prescription for your strep throat. So those are some of the things that you would think about when you see a nurse practitioner. Now, in the hospital, it's a little bit different role from being an outpatient, because the nurse practitioners they're often will be the person that you see first thing in the morning before the doctor's even around, because sometimes the surgeon doesn't come up until after the nurse practitioner or the PA has already done the history and physical and ask you all those many questions. And so then they would give that information to the surgeon or the doctor to say, hey, we need to go further with this, or there maybe not be a candidate for surgery at the moment, or something else is going on. So that really makes it a great team approach. So you may have a nurse practitioner in the hospital that has the title of doctor,
Okay.
Okay. So we have to start off as a nurse practitioner, you need to first have at least your bachelor's in nursing. And then you get a master's degree in nursing, or you can get a terminal degree, which is a doctorate of nursing practice. And some of those nurse practitioners are called doctor, particularly in academia. But sometimes the docs get a little offended by that because they feel like they should be the only one called doctor. But if we just call everybody what they are, nurse practitioner, physician, nurse, physician assistant, I don't think people will be confused.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Right.
People are more intelligent than what sometimes people give them credit for.
Right.
Right.
I think sometimes we as a whole have intelligence. It's the common sense that we sometimes lack.
Yeah.
Yes, sometimes I say common sense is not common.
Right.
Person who worked
Right.
in psychiatry,
Oh.
inpatient for a long time, you'd be surprised at some of the things I've seen.
So with any type of service work, is that something that you knew when you were young, you wanted to be a nurse, or just as, like you said, you started in the lab, you knew that wasn't for you? Was the medical field something you were always interested in?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. I did also wanted to be an astronaut and go into astrophysics until I took my physics class in high school, and then I realized, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I always knew I was going to be in science. I didn't know what, but I always knew I was going to be in science. I thought about marine biology at one time. I mean, I looked at all kinds of things, and I settled on medicine when I went to college. I was pre med. I was planning on going to medical school, and as I got further and closer to it, I realized I don't want to do that. I spent time with my cousin, who's a wonderful OBGYN. And I have several physicians in my family, so that's why I can rag on them. I have physicians and nurses in my family, and I saw that he had all the money and all the toys, but never got a chance to play with them.
Wow.
And that stuck out to me, and I thought, I just don't see that being a good work-life balance. So I made the decision to take a gap year after I was a fifth year senior and get a job working in a nursing home till I figured out what I wanted to do. And that's when I saw what the nurses did. And I thought, I can do that. So I called up the university that where my now husband was living, and I said, "Let me in your nursing school. I want to transfer." This is 2 weeks before the semester started, by the way.
Oh, wow.
They said, "Oh, well, you have to get accepted into the university first." I said, "No problem. Here are my transcripts." They let me in. They said, "Now you have to get accepted into the School of Nursing." So they sent my transcripts over, and they were excited to have me because they never had a pre-med student transfer to nursing. But anyway, so 3 weeks before the semester started, my lease was up in my apartment. I had to find a place to live. It was a whole big issue.
Oh,
I
wow.
moved to Anderson to go to school, and I was getting married at the time. So it worked out. But yeah, I don't recommend waiting to 3 weeks before the semester starts to decide you want to go to nursing school.
Right.
Probably not smart. But it worked out for me, and I know that was God. Um, so I get into school and I finish my degree. So I do have a degree in biology and two minors from Taylor University.
Right.
And because I don't like to leave things unfinished. So I went ahead and finished my degree. I only had a Bible class and a math class to transfer back anyway.
Okay.
So I did that and got my degree in biology, which I still use to this day. So it was very useful. And then I got my bachelor's in nursing, and I came in as a sophomore. So I spent 3 years there. So I have two bachelor's degrees.
Wow.
So I started my first job working psychiatry
Mm.
at a Ball Memorial Hospital when they had the psychiatric floor up there. And the day of the end of my shift, I was on second shift and I was in orientation. And then I was mandated to work third shift, and I became charge nurse.
Wow.
And that was my entrance into nursing.
Wow.
So I can feel for those students who had to graduate during the pandemic and get thrown into it because we were just so short staffed. I feel for you because I understand that This is
Mm-hmm.
even before the pandemic and everything. But yeah, that was my interest into nursing. My first night off of orientation, I was charge nurse with 2 admissions and no unit secretary and an aide that had bad knees and could barely walk, and we had to do vital signs every 2 hours.
Oh,
Wait a
wow.
minute, wait a minute. You said an aide that had bad knees.
Bad knees and could barely walk. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So it
Oh.
was an interesting night, and my manager did not answer her phone, even though she promised she would. She did not. So I figured that was my baptism by fire. And if I could, everybody lived, nobody died, they
That's
got their
good thing.
meds.
Right.
I had help in the morning to help me finish up the admissions for the stuff that I just couldn't figure out because I was too busy. Because I didn't have, staff to help me. I just had to do it. And so I say to the new grads, you can do it. Hopefully your
Right.
night will not be as rough as mine. You'll
Mm-hmm.
have a little bit more help.
Right.
um, they tried to help me on the second floor, which is the psychiatry floor. I was on the addictions floor. But because they were full, that's one of the reasons why I had to open up the third floor. That unit got full. So they were, running around with new admissions and everything like that. So they didn't have time to really come up and help. So
Mhm.
I had to learn quickly.
Wow.
Man, that's crazy.
So, with your nursing career, what was it, or how long were you in your nursing career before you started to feel the need for something different or some type of pivot? And then, like, when that need came about, how did it like roll into what you're doing now?
Well, I started working at Ball. Um, and I got an opportunity for a promotion about a year later. They had asked me to do some teaching, some adjunct faculty teaching for Ivy Tech, the state college.
Hmm.
And so they asked me to do that during that time because they didn't have anybody to teach their psych rotation to their nurses because they were making all their LPNs become RNs.
Hmm.
Okay.
And so I'm the only one who volunteered to do it because I'm like, well, I'll give it a try. I think I can do this. I've been a teacher all my life. I used to have class back when I was a kid, and we would have our
Uh-huh.
own classes.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I would teach all my little dolls.
That was
We
me.
had a grade book and everything because the teachers would give us their old grade
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Same.
and
I
old
was just
textbook.
telling
Yep.
him that. I used to get at the end of the year, my mom, oh, she would get so frustrated. But they would give away like all the extra copies of worksheets and things like
Yep.
that. And I'd come home and I'd just teach all the teddy bears.
I did too. So I agreed to do it, and having that experience and the other things that I did, I got promoted and got the supervisor position at another hospital in psychiatry.
Okay.
And so I was helping with a lot of staff education at that time, and I thought, I think I want to be a staff educator. Now, in the back of my mind, I thought I really wanted to be the president of the hospital. I was like, and I told my then vice president that one day I'm going to have your job. I was young, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
He was like, I hope you do. And by the way, we still talk occasionally. It's kind of funny. But I got into management and realized, yeah, I don't want to do this either.
Hmm.
Um, it was fine. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. But what made me realize is that as a middle manager, there wasn't a lot of change that I could affect. And so I thought, I got to do something different. And I went to take a parish nursing course.
Mhm.
And while I was an undergrad in nursing school, I happened to be a student representative on the Indiana State Nurses Association board. And I met the then president, who happened to be the dean of the School of Nursing at the University of Indianapolis. This is important.
Okay.
So I'm at the hospital. The VP of mission happens to be a mentor of mine, and she said, "I want you to take this parish nursing course because I was involved in the church health stations initiative through the hospital to lower blood pressures in African American churches." So I said, "Okay, well, I'll take this class. The hospital will pay for it." And I said, "Well, I'm going to take it for graduate credit. I'm just going to try it out to see if I can actually work full time and go to grad school."
Mhm.
So I did, and it happened to be at the University of Indianapolis. And who was teaching the class was the dean.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so she says to me, "Why aren't you in graduate school? You're taking this for grad credit. Why don't you just come to school?" And I said, "Oh, I don't want to take the GRE again. My scores are old," which I did when I went to Taylor. In order to pass your biology subject test, you had to pass the biology subject test for the GRE, in addition to taking the general GRE. So I'm like, I am not taking that again. And so I kept, making excuses, and I didn't, and so I get a letter in the mail that says, "You've been provisionally accepted to graduate school in the family nurse practitioner program. Show up to class on this date," from the dean. So that's how I got into grad school.
Oh, wow.
He told me I was going. And that was
Forced you,
that.
basically.
But you obviously, just in this brief time, you are driven and you are ambitious, and that's
Yes.
something that she saw in you, and she wasn't going to let you not use that.
Yep. Yep.
So now you have Nurse Shark Academy.
Yes.
If you could tell us a little bit about that and how you segued into that move.
Well, I had started a business previously with two other business partners, training CNAs when I was in between jobs.
Mm.
As a nurse practitioner. It was right at 2008 when the recession happened, and we were trying to help people find jobs, and I knew nursing homes needed help, so we started that business. So fast forward to about I think we were in like year 9 or 10 in that business, and I was in a challenge, an online challenge, and the speaker of the challenge challenged us to start a challenge within 3 weeks. And so I originally had thought, oh, I'll just start a podcast. We'll just talk to nurses, blah, blah, blah. But when he did that, I thought, well, I have so many people asking me, hey, how do you do this? How do for business? How do I get started? What do I need to do? Who do I need to call? And I said, why don't I just make it a formal program? So that's what I did. I launched the business with my first online challenge.
Wow.
And I did a 5-day challenge. And I just went on Facebook. I got a Facebook group, and I put it out there and said, "Hey, come join my challenge." And I got my first client that way.
Oh, wow.
And so it worked out. And so from there, I thought, I really want to make sure nurses get the good foundation when they build their business, because I've been getting a lot of 911 calls. Hey, the state came in and audited me, and now I need training on this and this and this for my staff. Or, hey, I need help because there's a part of a regulation I didn't meet, and now I got to fix things. And then. And so I thought, well, what if we just start off with a good foundation so that you don't have to have those 911 calls?
Right.
Right. Right.
So that was the idea behind the Nurse Shark Academy. And of course, I was watching a lot of Shark Tank at the time.
Mhm.
And I was looking for a name, and I kept saying, well, Nurse Boss is taken. And, I thought about Nurse Babe, but then I don't like the idea of that because we're trying to
Right.
get away from, the sexy nurse trope. And
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
so I was trying to figure something out. And I said, Shark, Shark. It just kept coming back to me. And I said, well, what's a shark? And the shark is an expert in their field.
Right.
And so I said, oh, I wonder if there's something called the nurse shark. So I Google and I look and search. Well, there actually is a nurse shark, the animal.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Okay.
Yes. And the nurse shark animal is a non lethal shark, meaning it won't attack you unless you bother it,
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
has
Okay.
teeth. And I like that. And
Wow.
I thought this is perfect because we're the Nurse Shark Academy, where we're experts in nursing and
Mm-hmm.
we're experts in business. And even though we're friendly sharks, we still have teeth.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That
That's
is
fantastic.
awesome.
That is fantastic.
And how long has the Nurse Shark Academy been in operation?
The Nurse Shark Academy is about 3 years old, but my current business that the Nurse Shark Academy is under the umbrella, we're about 9 years old now.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
That is awesome.
That's awesome.
That's so a lot of people we've spoken with have and we've experienced it and talked about it, the idea of imposter syndrome, and
Mhm.
where you get these ideas and you want to do something, but then in the back of your mind you're like, really, why would you, or who do you think you Is that something that you've struggled with at any point? Because it just seems like you decide, I'm going to do this, and then you move.
It don't seem like
you move on it.
I have struggled with that. I struggle with that, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway.
Awesome.
And do it scared and figure it out. My motto is everything is figure outable. So I typically so I ask, can you do this? I'll think about it for a moment, and more often than not, I'll say yes. I may not have a clue at the time, but I can figure it out. And this is what I've learned. And so what I teach when I teach the skills that I do for our nurses, I teach the things that I know and I've tried them first. So if they're wanting to start a CNA training school, don't worry, I got you because I've started too.
Right.
You want to start a CPR training school? I got that. I've been doing CPR training for 25 years or more. I got you. You want to start a home care? Don't worry, I've helped other people do that. So the things that I've done, I bring to the table. I was like, hey, you want to start a podcast? Now I can help you with that too.
Yes.
I had a show before I knew I had a show. The first show, which is still going on, is the Nursing News You Can Use show, which just started out as a Facebook Live during the pandemic, just telling people, hey, get your PPE here, and hey, go over here, and these people have hand sanitizer. And now it's a curated weekly news show that covers healthcare news and things that are happening in nurses. So I've covered nursing strikes. I've covered big litigation that comes out, the whole new nursing home mandates that are coming out, all those things I cover on that show. And I was telling my mom, I said, I realized I didn't know that I was going to be using the skills that I learned earlier in what I'm doing now. Most people don't know that I used to be a radio DJ.
What is it that you don't do?
Okay, so this is how it happened.
You haven't done.
In high school, I ran out of classes to take. I could have graduated. Okay. I had a semester left and I didn't want to graduate. I was on student council, all this stuff. Plus, I just liked school. And so I said, I want to take something fun. And the only thing that fit into my schedule was radio broadcasting.
Wow.
So I took radio broadcasting and I had a jazz show. It was a jazz radio station. So I did a jazz show. And then when I got to college, I decided to also do radio and I had a gospel show. So I was Lady T, which, by the way, is still my gaming.
I love your confidence.
Yes.
And the fact that you say you do it afraid. And then once you've done it, that's something that you can say, well, I've experienced that. So now that helps build your confidence.
It's like you paid attention to those old Nike commercials and they said, just do it.
Yeah. You know what? It may not always work out. I can tell you there are times where things did not work out. I was working with a company, it was a startup, and they needed a nurse practitioner to help them do allergy testing. And they were actually at the forefront of doing this genetic testing, allergy testing, the swabs, and all this stuff. And it was a great idea. The problem was the regulatory hurdles kept them from staying in business. And so that didn't pan out. I was like, okay. I also did some diagnostic testing with people. I went with a company. They said, hey, we're going to do this diagnostic testing. We did it for about 6 months, didn't pan out. So not everything pans out, but I gave it a try.
Right.
I wanted to see if we can help, grow. So that's why I like startups. I think, give it a try and see. You never know what you can do. I never knew I could do a podcast. I didn't even think about it until I was doing it. I didn't even realize I was actually a business owner, or until later on when I made it official. But I was a side hustler for years. I would teach those CPR classes and had corporate clients and just making cash because I was a broke college student.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
So start with what you have. Right.
Yeah.
I just talked to one of my clients, one of my patients, and he's been doing photography as a hobby for years. Now he's doing it as his business. And just start with what you're interested in and what you have, and you'll be surprised where you can grow.
Right. That's so inspiring. That's
it is.
We're not teenagers. And so sometimes it's scary when you put yourself out there and you try things. I say sometimes it's scary. I know I'm the one that when we come up with an idea, I want to try and troubleshoot everything before it happens. Whereas he's more of the, no, we're just going to do it. And then, because there's nothing to troubleshoot if you don't do anything.
Yep.
So I admire that. And, you keep telling us these little things that you've done, and just that confidence it's inspiring. So I appreciate that.
Well, I'm a big researcher. So before I launched my business, I'm a legal nurse consultant as well. So that's the business I'm talking about. That was the first part. And so when I started that business, how I got into that, this is how it happened. I had a letter come in the mail at my office from an attorney. And of course, anytime you're at a doctor's office, an attorney sends you a letter, everybody freaks out.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
So I get it. And I'm like, oh man, what is this? And they asked me to sit on a medical review panel. I was like, I've never done this, but it sounds interesting. I'm
Mhm.
going to do it. So I said, okay, I'll do this. So I'm on this medical review panel. And so the panelist says, okay, now when they get ready to do your deposition, I'm like, say what now? When they get ready to do your deposition, they're going to need your fee schedule and how much you're going to charge. I'm like, I'll get back with you. I had no clue. So I said, let me figure this out really quick. And I happened to hop on the university's website, and they had an adult ed class on legal nurse consulting that I could get into right away, get it done before the case, we had to convene for
Mhm.
the case,
Mm.
and understand at least a little bit what I was supposed to do.
Right.
So I went ahead and did all of that, and I got the certificate and did the homework. I was like the only one who did the homework. He said, go to the courthouse and do this. So I did and turned my homework in. It was taught by an attorney. And it was a great experience because I took the initiative, learned what I needed to do just to get started
Mhm.
and hit the ground running, which was good because then right after that, when I was in that deposition, after that deposition, the attorney who saw how I handled the opposition, and I'm neutral, so I'm not for the plaintiff or the defense. I'm the
Right.
neutral expert on the party, right? But she saw how I handled what was going on. She remains one of my biggest clients today, and she hired me from that to help her on her other cases.
Mhm.
Wow.
I say that to say you never know when you're going to be in that position
Oh
Right.
yeah.
to grow, and you have to be ready when the opportunity hits.
Yeah.
And so when he said, get me a fee schedule, I had to figure some stuff out really quickly.
Right.
And the
Mm.
good thing about me is I'm a big researcher. Um, I'm a really big nerd. And when I was a kid, my parents gave me my
Yeah.
very first microscope and
Mhm.
my very first chemistry set.
Beautiful.
So of course, what did I do? I had my white lab coat from, being a junior church nurse.
Yep.
I put my white lab coat on and I opened my own lab off the spare room, off of our bedroom. So it was a secret lab. You had to get in with a special knock and everything. I was big. I was like maybe 13, 14 years old. And so I would do these experiments. And so I'm always experienced. I was always in that mode growing up. And so that lasted for quite a while until an unfortunate incident with an experiment got me banished to the basement. But yeah,
Now don't
it
tell
was a
me.
kinetic experiment that my mom was not thrilled about because my dad would just buy me chemicals, and that's all I have to say.
Okay.
But
Oh
he would take me to
wow.
the store and say, "Oh, let's go try this,"
I was
and of
about to
course I
say.
would.
I was about to say. Don't tell me you were the kid that was out there when the other kids would fall off their bike. You like, hey, give me that blood sample.
Yes, yes.
I just made that
I
up. How did I know?
Twigs, leaves, rocks. My mom used to get so mad at me because when I was little, when I was about 5 or 6, she'd always have to check my pants because she didn't know what was going to be in my
What you were
pockets.
gonna bring?
Because I would collect rocks and worms and leaves. She's
Oh,
like, "Will you stop bringing it?"
she's taking out the trash, and she was like, "What's?" all these dead bugs in here?
Yeah, because I would take
think
them and I'd look at them under I had a microscope, or I'd take and look at them under the magnifying glass. And I grew up with older boy cousins,
Mhm.
so I wasn't afraid of being outside with the bugs because I wanted to be out with them. So
Right.
you just kind of got into that kind of stuff. And
Man.
yeah, I've been a science geek since I was little.
I love that your parents nurtured that.
Yes, definitely.
And didn't sway you away from it, but nurtured it and allowed you to have that space to experiment
Yeah.
and to cultivate that love for science. Because here you are,
Mhm.
still, like you said, you're using those same skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell people I never thought that I couldn't because my parents never told me I couldn't, right? So I
Right.
just assumed I could do everything
Mm-hmm.
Dang. That
because
is.
nobody told me I couldn't. And when I got older and junior high and things like that, and teachers started to tell me that I couldn't, I have a bit of a stubborn streak. So if you say I can't do something, I'm going to
Yeah.
prove to you that
I'm gonna
yes,
show
I
you.
can.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've since gotten over that. I don't need to prove myself to people anymore. It taken me a while to get past that. But I remember in eighth grade, because I went through a period of where I didn't do any homework because it was repetitive and dumb. I mean, I did it, but I just never turned it in. So um, my mom was so frustrated with me sometimes.
Look, I wish I
Find
was
the
in school
homework I
too. Like,
never
give me your
turned in.
homework.
You're not going to use it. Let me turn
But the
it in.
teachers were mad and frustrated because I'd walk in and I'd take the test and I get an A on the test.
Right.
So I
Uh,
I squeezed by my seventh and eighth grade year. So my eighth grade year, I was really bored, and so the teacher said, "Hey, we're going to have this science contest, the fair, and you can get extra credit and da da da, do an experiment and all this stuff." And I thought, that sounds like fun. I'll do that. And he looks at me and goes, "Wait, you want to be in the science fair?" And I'm like, "Look, just because I don't turn in the
Now it's
homework don't mean I
challenge.
don't know
Yep.
what's in the book.
yeah, right,
I read
right.
it once. I know what's in there, right?" Um, and so, yeah, I got in there, and went into the science fair. I don't even remember if I won or anything. I can't even remember what I did for the science fair. But I did my little project, and then I got to high school, and I remember my first grade report card in high school. I got straight A's because I actually put in effort. I kind of
Mhm.
like, mom's going to get on my case. I'm going to actually do the work this time.
Yeah.
So I got straight A's, and then people started giving me stuff. So I
Uh-oh.
got money.
Uh-huh.
The school had this big old, thing for us. They gave us like notepads and briefcases. It did kind of, so every year that you went up and you kept at the top of the grades, they would give you stuff up to your senior year. And so they took us out to lunch. If you were the top in your class, you got to go out to lunch at the
Yeah.
fancy hotel at the Hilton, and they
What?
ride you around in a limo and all this stuff.
Okay.
And the people at church, would give you money, and then dad made the mistake of saying, "I'll give you $10 for every A," and he had to pony up $100, was a
All
lot of
right.
money back then.
Oh
Mm.
yeah. Oh yeah.
So the amount went down every year, but because he
Making
had
too
to honor it
many.
because he gave his word. Um, so I figured out, hey, you get things, and people let you do stuff when you get good grades. So
Mhm.
that was all the motivation I needed. Get good grades, and then it was other things that motivated me. But I realized you get paid.
Mhm. Right, right.
I got a tennis bracelet my senior year.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Yeah, you got it. You got in the newspaper. This is where, when you have those opportunities, it opens up the world to you. We
Mhm.
got to meet state legislators and senators. So we met the
Wow, neat.
representatives and the senate. I still have the picture. In fact, you know what? Wait a minute, because my mom made me take all my stuff. She's like, "Get your stuff out my house."
You was over there. You was over there overachieving and stuff. And mom was
So
like, "Look, it's too
this
much
is a
on you
picture
guys."
of when I graduated from high school.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
1990. That's my maiden name. This is the news anchor from WTOL. And you would go up there when you graduate and you were the top of the class. I was valedictorian. They put you on TV and everything like that.
Yeah.
So my mom made me take this. She still has the picture of me meeting Marcy Kaptur, who was the state representative in Ohio. And so, yeah, she made me say, "Take your stuff."
See,
Because now she's got great grandkids stuff now. She don't need my stuff anymore.
See, I was about to say, I know you didn't go to school in the deep South because we had folks that, now I wasn't an A student by no means, but we had folks just achieving A's, and well, at least they didn't say they got it and stuff like that. I don't know.
Nothing to that
Nothing to
extent.
that extent. Yeah.
That's
See,
wonderful.
they had this special program where if you went to a school in Ohio and you had the top of the grade, they would pay for your college tuition.
Oh, wow.
So they had that at one time.
Right.
Okay.
Which I didn't go to school in Ohio, so my dad had to pay for it first time. But they had these incentives for you to really do well. And my classmates, this is the funny thing, my classmates didn't know anything about it. They just like, "Oh, you're just a big nerd, you're a big Greek." So we're at a reunion, and I'm talking about all the stuff that we got and the briefcase that I had. Attaché case, and they're and riding around in the limo and everything. They're like, "Wait a minute, you got all that?" I said, "Mm-hmm." Now y'all that chose to stay in a special ed, I had a friend that chose to stay in a special ed class because you got candy. And those who chose to stay in a special ed, he been out,
right?
You got candy limo with all this stuff for free,
right?
Man,
yeah,
that is so. I mean, like I said, your mindset, the attitude, the confidence, all of that is just so inspirational. That's beautiful.
Now I want to pivot and ask you something a little silly.
Oh, gosh.
Now you said you married your husband when you were in college, right?
Yes.
Right at college. So how is that transition for you, Ben? And is he very supportive, overly supportive, or he's just like, "Oh Lord, here she come with another business"?
Oh no, we had a conversation early on before we got married.
You know what? And I'm not even sure.
He was in school too. He was in school at the time. We went to school at the same time. He was going to ITT for electronics and engineering, and I was going to school for nursing. And so we really worked well together with that. And he had just gotten out of the military.
Okay.
So, but we had a conversation when we started dating. I said, "Well, I'm gonna have this conversation from day one. I'm gonna let you know who I am, so we don't have any problems." But just to answer your question, he's my business partner.
Fantastic.
I made him my business partner. No, he helps in the other parts of the business, and it's really been helpful. When we decided to launch this business, we didn't know what challenges we were going to have. Personally, he's had some health challenges, so he had to leave his job working in electronics, and he actually worked kind of in the medical field because he was the person that worked on the flotrons that you put on your legs to keep you from getting blood clots in the hospital.
Okay.
That was his job. And so he did a lot of different things in that kind of field, and he had to stop working for a while. So I said, "Well, come on in, and we'll launch this business together." And we're doing some other things. So there's many facets to our business. And I let him take the lead on our other part of our business with Legal Shield. We do that as well because as a nurse practitioner, I saw too many people who didn't have wheels,
right?
Didn't have advanced directives, and I'm like, "Look, it's affordable,
right?
We use it. I want to help y'all use it, right?" So that's kind of how we got started with that. And so he's been really instrumental in finding that he's good. He knows everybody. See, he's from this area. He's from Anderson originally. So he grew up with everybody. So he knows everybody. And he's Mr. Social Butterfly. Like he has to go talk to people. And I'm like, I'm happy in the corner with a book.
That's me.
I forced myself to be more outgoing. It took a little bit of work and effort, but I'm a little bit better at it now. But yeah, he knows everybody. He remembers dates and things like that. So I let him run all that stuff. And he was a finance person too. He was a finance specialist in the military.
Okay.
Wow. He worked for Fort Bend, and he was at the finance center. And so I like numbers and stuff. I say, hey, check these figures. Check my math, make sure I got it going right, you know. So he's really good about that. And then I can ask him questions about products and things like that because he's
Mhm.
worked on them. And I said, well, if you're testing this and you want to find this, he's really a good resource when I'm looking for that type of stuff.
So have the two of you found balance in that? Okay, this is business or work related, but this is life related. Like, are there times when you're like, nope, this is off limits right now. This is lifetime, not work time. How do y'all balance those things?
Well, he's very good about keeping me focused on that. So I
Mm,
made a commitment to stop working at 9 p.m. Now, as a person, because I work full time still as a nurse practitioner.
mhm.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff I do is after hours or kind of late at night. And so I made a conscious effort to stop working at 9 p.m. And he'll remind me. There's this is really funny. Our old office didn't have any windows.
Mm. So
So I was down in the
No,
office,
you didn't know
we know.
didn't know what time it was
what
in the
time it
dark,
was,
you know, and I'm just working away and I'm just thinking, yeah, okay, oh my God, about an hour left to work. I'm gonna go home. It's about 10 o'clock.
Mm.
I get a phone call. It's about 2 a.m. And he says, where are you? I said, I'm in the office. I said, oh, did you make it home already? Because he was working in Indianapolis, in Plainfield at the time. And he goes, I've been home for like 2 hours. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, it is. I honestly, because I love what I do, I didn't even realize it was that
Wow,
late.
that is
And I would have just kept happily on working.
that is just fantastic. You have through all your trials, tribulations, all the studying, everything that you have endured, you have found something that you just love to do. And a lot of people can't say that.
Mm-mm.
A lot of people
Yeah.
can't say that. That is fantastic.
I think too, the fact that when you veered towards something that you said, well, I'll try this.
Yeah.
And you got in and no, I don't like
You
this.
never know.
That it was okay for you to say,
Yep.
I don't like this and I'm just
Mhm.
I'm gonna pivot.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we get stuck because we feel like either, we made the decision to do it. We feel like for whatever reason we have to see it through, or we have to stick to it because we told people we were going to do
Yep.
whatever. But the fact that you said, no, this is not for me, and you found that path that leads you to 2 a.m. to continue
Yeah.
until 2 a.m.
That,
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, I honestly thought it was just 11 o'clock. I really did.
that makes you
And
another
I was
question.
just, yeah, I get excited. It's like when I did developed my website.
Mm.
Mm.
So I had to get a website really quick because of the podcast. I was like, oh, okay, I got to get a website for the Nurse Shark Academy. So I just hopped on Wix. I use Wix. It's like, all right, easy, simple. I'm just a hop on there. And I started messing around with it and playing around with it. And I sent it for beta testing with some friends. And it gave me some feedback. And I started messing around with it. And so now I love it because I can just sit there and just make changes that I want to and, and add this. And it's so simple to use. And I'm like, okay, if I can do this, I can teach other people to do this. As long as it's not WordPress, we all good, right? We can drop and click
Right.
and do and create graphics. And now I make commercials because I find it fun. And so I, I have these commercials that my branding coach is like, that music, it's really dramatic music. And I said, but I
Uh-huh.
wanted it to be really dramatic. I find it hilarious that it's really dramatic. So I'm not too sure about this music. I said, yes, but it'll play funny. I said, we got to be a little cheeky with what we do. So I've
Right.
got one now, a little promo that I have with a shark, an ominous shark coming through, and it says, "Don't
Uh-huh.
be eaten alive," because we talk about eating our young as nurses, and I said, "Don't be eaten alive. Come feel the sun. Join the Nurse Shark Academy." You know, and so just this little things that I do, and I
Right.
just find I have fun with that. I
That's
play with colors and concepts and I get
mm,
creative and I do have other outlets. I don't work all the time. People say I never sleep. Oh, trust me, I sleep. I
Mm.
sleep. And I have other creative outlets. I mean, I sing and I used to dance. I don't dance as much anymore, bad knees, but um, I craft. I
Mm-hmm.
do all these different things. I volunteer in the community. I think it's important to be well rounded. And I love movies and books and everything sci-fi and geeky. Yep, I'm there.
So I got to ask you this because and this
Oh.
is a silly question. This is my last silly question now. I know you being in the medical field. I know you got some. I know you were hard working. You were learning everything. You were studying. You were the nerd of the family. I know
Mhm.
you got some family, some folks that's like, hey, cuz, what about that prescription on Ozempic? Well, you got that for me?
Oh, Ozempic.
I tell people, you know
Anything.
what? That stuff is hard to come by and very expensive. I
Oh
said, if
yeah,
we could try some lifestyle modifications along with that, because what people don't realize,
Mhm.
when you stop
Mhm.
taking that, the weight comes back.
Right.
Exactly, exactly.
So if
Right.
you haven't changed how you're living, the weight's going to come back. And so I tell them, you got to make those changes, or it's not. It's the same thing with bariatric surgery. It's
Mm-hmm.
great for a while, but if you don't keep it up, you don't
Right.
Keep it up,
your
it's coming
diet,
back.
you'll
Yeah.
get right back to where you were.
It's just one of those things where anytime, like anybody I've known who's had a nurse or a doctor in the family, a child graduates from nursing school or medical school. All right, now, cuz I get some prescriptions for free, won't
Yeah, I had that conversation with all my family when I became a nurse practitioner.
it?
Do not ask me for any pain medication. Do not ask me for any benzodiazepines, because it will not happen. If you want to see me, my office hours are.
There you
Yes.
go. There you go.
I had that conversation quick.
There's
But
no
yeah,
love.
I still get the pictures from Facebook Messenger. Hey, can you look at this rash? What's this about? You're gonna get
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I mean, till the pictures are like, oh my gosh, warn me before you show me this
yeah,
stuff,
yeah, yeah.
Send me a pre-warning, a trigger
Yes.
warning message.
Cuz what this is? I don't know.
I don't know what you've been into. I
Part of
don't
your body is that?
Or do I
and
want
my
to
usual
know?
response is maybe you should take them to the doctor, go to,
Mhm.
I get that from my nieces and nephews now that they're having children. So I get the great nieces and nephews, and they're like, my nephew, he's so funny, is his first child, and
Mhm.
he messages me and goes, she ran into the door and she got this big knot on her head. Should I take her to the ER? I said, is she walking? Is she talking? Is she okay? He showed me a big picture. Yes, she got a big old goose egg. I said, so put some ice on it. I said, chances are she'll be okay, but if she seems too drowsy, not wanting to wake up or stay awake, take her to the ER. But it's just little things like that. First time dad
Right.
all worried about it. He's like, she ran into the door. She got this big old goose egg on her head. I was like, boy, do you know how many times you ran into the door and got
Yep,
dropped and whatever else? I
I'm
said,
telling you. I'm
yeah.
telling you.
Right. Well,
Mhm.
this has been
Yes,
wonderful.
it has.
We want to thank you, but before we go, for those listeners who want to learn more about you, about Nurse Shark Academy, if you would let us know where to find you online.
Yes, you can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, um, just about everywhere. But you can also find me at the nursesharkacademy.biz, and that's where you can find our podcast, our blog posts, and all those wonderful things that we have.
Wonderful. And
Awesome.
thank you so much. I'm a lot of times with episodes like this, with the guests that we have bringing in, people are like, what does that have to do with marriage or things like that? But your confidence and that positive growth mindset,
Yep.
if that doesn't inspire
Anybody.
everyone to
Anybody. Yes.
be a better individual, I don't know what will. I'm motivated. We're gonna do some work when we get done.
Yep.
Because I'm just so motivated. So thank you for spending
Mhm.
time with us, for sharing with us, and for sharing with our listeners.
Well,
Thank
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Do you and your partner want to learn simple ways to grow closer?
Do you and your partner want to grow happier together?
Do you and your partner want to be a unified front?
Do you and your partner want to divorce-proof your marriage?
If you answer yes to these questions, you need to check out our book, Unlocking Forever, 10 Keys to a Successful Marriage Beyond I Do.
Each section focuses on a different aspect of marriage and briefly describes how we handled it in our relationship. At the end of the section, you're given an action step or key to complete with your partner.
These keys are practical steps you can immediately implement in your relationship and help you and your partner be proactive and intentional about your relationship.
You can purchase your copy on Amazon.com.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Beyond I Do podcast.
Please make sure to like this episode and also subscribe to our podcast. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at the Beyond I Do podcast.
And until next time, we will holler at y'all.